In the colorful world of microbia, viruses and bacteria live side by side, some causing trouble while others try to help. The story begins with Benny the bacterium, an enthusiastic and kind-hearted bacteria who loves helping others. Benny believes that germs can be good and is always on a mission to prove it. His best friend, Vera the virus, is fun-loving but misunderstood. Together, they embark on an adventure to show the world that not all germs are bad. One day, a mysterious illness starts spreading in the human world, causing panic both in microbia and among humans. Benny and Vera decide to take action. Along their journey, they meet Dr. Flora, a wise and ancient bacterium who knows all about the balance between good and harmful microbes. Dr. Flora explains that the new illness is caused by a rogue bacterium named Malice, who seeks to disrupt the harmony in microbia and the human world. Benny and Vera, with the guidance of Dr. Flora, set off to find Malice. As they navigate through the microscopic landscapes, they face several challenges, navigating through white blood cell ambushes, deciphering immune system traps, and overcoming their own fears. Their adventure brings them to the heart of the infection, where they finally encounter Malice. Malice reveals his plan to release a toxin that will cause chaos. Through a combination of Benny's bravery and Vera's cleverness, they manage to thwart Malice's plan. They capture Malice and bring him back to Dr. Flora, who helps him understand the importance of balance and living in harmony. In the end, the human world recovers from the illness, and microbia rejoices. Benny and Vera become heroes, celebrated for their bravery and dedication to peace. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village nestled between green hills, there was a farm owned by a kind-hearted farmer named John. On this farm lived many animals, but one stood out from the rest, a horse named Oliver. Oliver was known for his laziness and love for napping under the shady oak tree instead of working. Despite his lack of enthusiasm, Oliver was a strikingly beautiful horse, with a shiny coat and a gentle demeanor. Every morning, John would gather the animals to begin their tasks. While the cows supplied milk and the chickens laid eggs, Oliver always found a way to avoid the routine. "Oh, Farmer John," he would sigh, "my hooves ache so. Let me rest today, and I'll work twice as hard tomorrow." Taking pity on him, Farmer John would allow Oliver to rest, hoping the horse would make good on his promise the next day. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Oliver's promises never came to fruition. The other animals started to grumble among themselves, feeling burdened with the extra work. The wise old owl that lived in the barn watched everything unfold silently. One day, the farmer received news of a fair in the neighboring town. Eager to showcase his finest animals, John decided to take Oliver, hoping to win a prize that would help the farm. When Oliver heard of this, he was more than excited to be the center of attention and promised to work hard to look his best. The day of the fair arrived, and Oliver was groomed till his coat gleamed like polished mahogany. At the fair, Oliver enjoyed the attention, preening and prancing.
In the colorful land of Tick-Tockville, there lived a young clock named Timmy. Timmy was not just any ordinary clock. He had legs, hands, and the brightest face in all of Tick-Tockville. Timmy loved to talk, and often bragged about how he had all the time in the world, never realizing the true value of each tick and tock. One sunny morning, the wise old grandfather clock, known as Grandpa Gears, called Timmy over. "Timmy," he said, his hands slowly moving, "you must learn that time is the most precious gift we have. I want you to visit the timekeeper at the end of the rainbow lane." Curious and a little confused, Timmy set off on his little legs, ticking and talking his way down the lane. He passed Click the mouse with her cheese puzzle, Blair the butterfly flitting lazily upon flowers, and Granny Spindle spinning yarn and telling tales. As he reached the end of Rainbow Lane, he met the timekeeper, a grand hourglass that stood tall, filled with shimmering golden sand. "Hello, Timmy," the timekeeper greeted warmly. "I hear you think you have all the time in the world." Timmy nodded cheerfully. "I do. I'm young, bright, and have plenty of time to spare." The timekeeper chuckled softly. "Let me show you something," he said, turning slightly. In the blink of an eye, the golden sands inside him began to fall more quickly than Timmy had ever seen. "Watch closely," said the timekeeper. With each grain of sand, Timmy saw moments of his life flash by. The day he learned to tell the time, the evening he spent playing hide and seek with Blair, and even the dawn when Granny Spindle taught him his first story. Suddenly Timmy understood. Time wasn't something to waste, but a valuable treasure. He turned to the timekeeper, his face now somber. "Thank you," he said. "I didn't realize how precious each tick and talk was." With new understanding, Timmy hurried back to Tick-Tockville, determined to use every moment wisely. He helped Click finish her puzzle, raced with Blair, and listened to all of Granny Spindle's stories. And so, in learning the true value of time, Timmy became the happiest little clock in all of Tick-Tockville, savoring each precious moment. From that day onward, he shared his newfound wisdom with everyone he met. Use your time well, for once it's gone, it never returns. And the clocks, animals, and people of Tick-Tockville all listened, valuing time like the treasure it truly was.
In the heart of a lush green village, there lived a kind-hearted farmer named Hari. Hari's days were spent tending to his land, and he was beloved by all his neighbors for his generosity and warmth. But what made Hari truly extraordinary was that he had a magical goose named Chandra. Chandra was not an ordinary goose. She laid a shiny golden egg every single day. These golden eggs were unlike anything anyone had ever seen, and they sparkled like the stars in the midnight sky. Hari was incredibly grateful for Chandra, and with each golden egg, he sold them to make a comfortable living while using some of the proceeds to help those in need. His life was a picture of contentment and joy. However, news of Hari's wondrous goose soon spread beyond the village, reaching the ears of the greedy businessman, Mr. Greedson. Mr. Greedson was wealthier than anyone could imagine, but his heart was as cold as the winter wind. He dreamt day and night of possessing wealth that no one could ever match, and upon hearing about Chandra, he saw his chance. One moonless night, Mr. Greedson hatched a plan. He tiptoed into Hari's farm, cloaked in darkness, and whispered to himself, "If I could get just one of those golden eggs, my riches would multiply." But when he reached Chandra's coop, his eyes gleaming with desire, he thought, "Why stop at one egg when I can take the goose herself? Imagine all the golden eggs I could gather." He picked Chandra up gently and hurried back to his mansion. To his surprise, when morning came and Chandra had been taken from her peaceful home, she stopped laying golden eggs entirely. Mr. Greedson, consumed by frustration, tried everything to coax a golden egg from her. But the goose refused, longing for the warmth of her kind master Hari. Hari, saddened by the loss of his dear Chandra, continued with his simple living, never once letting the loss dampen his spirit or kindness. Then, something magical happened. Chandra, sensing Hari's kindness from afar and wanting to return, found her way back home on her own. The village celebrated her homecoming, and to everyone's amazement, Chandra resumed laying those precious golden eggs. Mr. Greed's son, having learned a valuable lesson about greed and its consequences, visited Hari to apologize. Though he could never undo his actions, he promised to change his ways. And from that day forward, Mr. Greed's son used his wealth to help the villagers, inspired by Hari's selflessness. The story of Jajui Son Kasab teaches us that greed often leads to loss, but kindness and contentment pave the way to true happiness. In a small, bustling town, rumors swirled of a cunning thief who had stolen over 90,000 coins from various merchants. This thief, known only as the Shadow, was elusive, leaving behind no trace but the empty coffers and devastated shopkeepers. The townspeople were terrified, locking up their valuables and fortifying their houses, but nothing could stop the Shadow. One foggy night, the Shadow crept silently through the alleys, eyes glinting with anticipation. Disguised in dark clothing, the thief approached the largest mansion in town, the home of the wealthy merchant, Mr. York. Inside, Mr. York was oblivious to the impending theft and had fallen asleep in his luxurious bed. The Shadow skillfully picked the lock and slipped inside, step by careful step. However, the Shadow wasn't alone. A pair of watchful eyes followed the thief's every move. Rex, Mr. York's loyal dog, sensed the intruder and quietly trailed behind. As the Shadow began to snatch coins and jewels from the grand safe, Rex stood poised at the doorway. Suddenly, Rex let out a deep, resonant bark that echoed through the mansion. The noise startled the Shadow, who dropped a sack of riches, coins clattering on the marble floor. As the Shadow turned to flee, Rex lunged and grasped the thief's cloak with his powerful jaws, refusing to let go. Woken by the ruckus, Mr. York grabbed a lantern and hurried downstairs. He found Rex triumphantly standing over the subdued thief. The authorities were summoned, and the Shadow was unmasked, a familiar face in the crowd, trusted by many. The town rejoiced at the news of the thief's capture and praised Rex's bravery. Mr. York rewarded Rex with a medallion of honor and a feast fit for a hero. Once upon a time in a small, cheerful village, there was a young boy named Gattu. Gattu was known for his bright blue cap and his endless curiosity. He was full of energy and loved exploring the world around him. However, Gattu had a little problem. He often told fibs to make his adventures sound more exciting than they really were. One bright, sunny morning, Gattu dashed out of his house with his best friend, Chicky, a playful puppy with a wagging tail and adorable polka dots. "Let's go to the river and catch the biggest fish anyone has ever seen," Gattu declared, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Chicky barked happily, ready for the adventure. They rushed to the riverbank, where the water sparkled like 1,000 jewels. Gattu cast his fishing line into the water, and he and Chicky waited eagerly. However, the fish seemed to be hiding, and after an hour, Gattu only had a small, wriggly fish to show for his efforts. Feeling a bit disappointed, Gattu's imagination started to take over. He ran back to the village, pulling Chicky along and shouted, I caught a fish as big as a boat. You should have seen it, everyone. The villagers gathered around, their eyes wide with amazement. What the? Let's see this enormous fish, they cheered. Gata hesitated, but then said, well, it was so big that I had to let it go in the river. A few days later, Gattu and Chicky decided to explore the nearby forest. They played hide and seek among the tall trees and laughed as the birds sang merrily. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a small cave. Curious as ever, Gata peeked inside and found nothing but darkness. That evening, back in the village square, Gata couldn't resist adding some spice to his tale. Chicky and I found a cave filled with treasure and a sleeping dragon guarding it, he exclaimed. But we escaped just in time. The villagers were amazed again, though some began to doubt Gattu's incredible stories. One evening, as Gattu was lying in bed, he heard a tiny voice. Gattu, do you think all these fibs are fair to your friends? It was his conscience speaking. Gattu thought deeply and realized that his fibs might not be fair after all. The next morning, Gattu decided it was time for a change. He gathered everyone in the village square and said, I have something important to share. From now on, my stories will be as real as you and me. I promise to tell the truth. The villagers clapped and cheered. Chicky barked joyfully, and everyone felt proud of Gattu's newfound honesty. From that day on, Gattu's adventures were filled with genuine excitement and happiness, and his tales became the most loved stories in the village. He learned that the truth leads to true friendships and happiness. In the bustling town of TikTokville, where the sun danced merrily in the sky, lived a young mouse named Timmy Timewatch. Timmy was not your ordinary mouse. He had a peculiar fascination with time. His tiny room was filled with clocks and watches of every kind, each ticking harmoniously, marking the minutes and seconds that Timmy cherished so dearly. Timmy had a best friend, a cheerfully lazy turtle named Tina Slowly. Tina loved to nap under the sun and believed that time was an endless supply. Why rush, Timmy? She'd often say, stretching her legs leisurely. We got all the time in the world. But Timmy knew better. His wise old grandpa Tick had once told him, time is not something you can get back, young Timmy. Every tick and every tock is a moment to cherish. One sparkling morning, their teacher, Ms. Clockwise, announced the grand annual TikTokville talent show. The winner would receive a magical hourglass that granted the user an extra hour in their day. Timmy's eyes widened with excitement. With that hourglass, he could fix all the watches in town before sunset. He urged Tina to join him in preparing an amazing act, but Tina, accustomed to taking things slow, shrugged it off. There's plenty of time, she yawned. Determined, Timmy practiced his act diligently, perfecting a dazzling display of clockwork tricks. Meanwhile, Tina dozed under her favorite tree, dreaming of turtles' races she always won in her dreams. The day of the talent show arrived, and the town square buzzed with excitement. Timmy, confident in his preparations, was ready. He looked around for Tina, but she was nowhere to be found. When her name was called, Tina panicked, realizing she had wasted too much time napping. She hurried to the stage, but her lack of practice showed. Despite her stumbles, the audience cheered her effort. Then it was Timmy's turn. He leapt onto the stage, his tricks flowing seamlessly, a beautiful symphony of clicks and tick-tocks that mesmerized everyone. The crowd erupted into applause, and Timmy was awarded the magical hourglass. As Tina congratulated Timmy, she sighed. I wish I'd used my time wisely. Timmy smiled. Time is precious, he said kindly. But there's always the next show. Let's start practicing together tomorrow. From that day on, the clock tower in TikTokville not only marked the hours, but also reminded everyone of the invaluable gift of time. Timmy and Tina became a dynamic duo, combining speed and patience to create wonderful performances, always remembering the lesson they learned. And so, the ticking of the clocks resonated not just in their town, but in their hearts too, teaching them to value every moment and make the most of the time given. In TikTokville, time was not just measured by clocks, but by memories made and opportunities seized.